Over the past few months, I've been reporting and commenting quite a bit on Alberta's demand for at least one new oil pipeline to Tidewater. My mantra has been show me your math, because the evidence suggests that the business case is weak. At the very least, there are huge risk factors like peak oil demand in 2030 that aren't even being publicly discussed, but should be. That said, there's another issue that arose in my interview with energy economist Chris Bataille of Columbia University Center on Global Energy Policy, and that is non-economic tests that must be considered before the federal government decides if it should be involved in a project like a new pipeline. Maybe you could explain to the audience uh, the fact that there are principles under which it's recognized that decisions are made about whether the federal government should or should not get involved in large infrastructure projects like this. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, no, government plays a certain role in the economy, and we all argue about what that is. But boiled down is government has a longer view than people, and it has a longer view than firms. It's meant to be there forever for the life of the country, and its job is partly to think out through our lifetimes, past our lifetimes, to future Canadians, right? So its job is partly to think about what investments need to occur that the private sector might not do for itself, right? So building the railway across Canada was key to enabling the Canadian state, the Canadian Federation, and economic flow going back and forth. Perhaps telecoms might do that. At a far extent, you might think of like power transmission, or might lead economic development. Pipelines, and it's a bit of a stretch to say that fits under that, but it could fit under that. But its job is to think long term, and it's to help lead development as opposed to simply follow it, right? So that's the broader thing. But in order to bring in federal money, it's got to meet a cost benefit test. Like, the benefits have to be larger, the discounted benefits have to be larger than the discounted costs. And you put a lot of capital up in, the benefits have to be pretty large to pay off that capital, because federal capital comes out of your pocket, out of taxpayer dollars, right? So when you think about what the government should do, you should think about what do we ask taxpayers today to pay for as an investment in Canadian society in the future. And that's the AB way of thinking about it, but then there's numeric tests of that basically a long-term cost benefit test. So for the federal government to backstop, use its own money, its own borrowing power, its own billions to backstop these things, the test is pretty high to get involved with what is otherwise a private industry transaction.